Hello and welcome everybody once again to PW OnlyIAS English. So we are continuing with the Udaan series for Prelims 2025. I, Jatin Verma, am taking the polity lectures under the Udaan series. So the fourth lecture today, systems of government, parliamentary system or the presidential form of government as we see in the USA. Which system is better? Why did we adopt the parliamentary form of government in India? Why our constitution makers chose this instead of the presidential form of government? What are its features and how the system actually functions? All these details in a prelims oriented manner we are going to see in this lecture today. And there's a bit of good news. Those of you who were finding the first three lectures to be a little boring, to be a little static, now the interesting journey in the Indian polity lecture starts from this topic onwards. I'll help you understand the nuances of topic with the help of the UPSC previous year questions which have been asked across the state PSC exams also, be it Odisha Public, be it Punjab PCS or be it UP Public Service Commission. We are going to specifically focus on the UPSC Prelims 2025. Keeping in mind the current affairs, I'll try to link it with the current affairs also. Now, there's a bit of small information. For the PDF of this lecture, you can subscribe to this Telegram channel, Jatin Verma Sir, PW Only IS. So, the nomenclature, sir, etc. I do not like prefixing this, but this is the norm here. So, just scan the QR code and subscribe to this channel for PDF and regular updates about my sessions on PW Only IS English. So, without much ado, let's get started. The topic is systems of government, as I said. Why did we adopt parliamentary form of government? This is a very small chapter though, but I have incorporated NCERT details and the Hindu newspaper analysis details wherever relevant so as to make this journey interesting for you guys. Now, broadly, the two systems of government are found world over depending upon the nature of the relationship between the legislature and executive. Okay, we are not going to talk about monarchy, democratic monarch, etc. We are going to talk about the republican system, the republics are the countries where there is elected head of the state, even if he is nominated nominal head or real head, but the head of the state should be an elected representative. Like in India, we have the president. All right. Now, we have adopted parliamentary system. US adopted presidential system. Parliamentary system is a system where you can see the legislature, the majority in the legislature, especially in the Lok Sabha, is the basis for the government to be formed. Government, the leader of the government, that is the Prime Minister Modi in our case, okay, he has to have 273 members, 272 plus 1 out of 545 members of the Lok Sabha. Then only he'll be able to become the Prime Minister. These members could be the members of one single party, that is in PM Modi's case BJP, during Dr. Manmohan Singh's era Congress. Not the one single party. Congress was a coalition. It could be one single party having all these 273 seats, as Congress used to have during the Indira Gandhi era, Nehru era, Rajiv Gandhi era, or after 1990s we have seen the advent of coalition parties. Okay, so a group of political parties combining hands together to form the government, even though Congress might be having, for example, we are taking the example of Congress, BJP, NDA, Congress 206 in 2004, plus other allies of Congress, other friendly parties to the Congress forming United Progressive Alliance. They total had 273 members. Then the government formed is called a government which will be able to survive. Okay, if the party does not have the enough numbers, then the party has to entertain the demands of the coalition partners, alliance partners. Like BJP also today, BJP is not having the majority on its own. It is in the government, it has been able to form the government with the help of two political parties, one of Andhra Pradesh, that is Chandrababu Naidu's party, and one of Nitish Kumar's party of Bihar, right? So names of the parties are not important. I'm not going to bother you with unnecessary details because this is a prelims oriented session. But why have we created this dotted line here? It means that MPs of the legislature, union parliament here is the legislature of the central level. Okay, so these MPs are going to become ministers. MPs of Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha both are eligible to become ministers. Now, the very fact that the government is in the office, government is able to form itself because of its majority in the parliament, in the popularly elected house, directly elected house of the parliament, that is Lok Sabha. This is the very reason that we call it as parliamentary form of government. Government which is deriving its authority because of its majority in the parliament, because of the support of majority number of MPs in the in the directly elected house, in the Lok Sabha. Clear? Why is this majority important? This is the theoretical side of it. Now, UPSC is not asking the purely theoretical questions, my dear students. UPSC is asking, checking your knowledge. I'll be very honest with you. In 2011-12, when I was writing my first prelims, which I cleared, okay, so in that attempt, I ended up mistaking this question in the first glance. At the very first glance, I ended up misreading this question out of the hurry. This was question number 13, 14. That time I remember, have been being a teacher, I had to look back at my exam so as to help you guys. So when you are in the rush to solve the first 25, 30 questions, you end up glossing over or misreading the question. Don't commit that kind of mistake, especially in these static nature of topics, in the topics of these type of nature, static portion. Now, because if the government wants a particular bill, for example, present day Waqf bill to be implemented, or government wants one nation, one poll bill to be passed through the parliament, government can act only if a bill converts into law, only if the bill is able to pass through the parliament. Then only the government will be able to act upon it. Then only it will become an act. Anything which is done without the statutory act is illegal because we are a country governed by rule of law. We have to abide by the rule of law, right? The rule of law says that nothing which is impermissible, which does not have a legal stamp, should be done by district collector, should be done by government, be it the prime minister, be it chief minister, governor, anybody. So first of all, we need a law for legal sanction, for legal approval. That law needs to be passed by the parliament, and government should therefore first introduce the bill in the parliament, and that bill will be able to be passed through the parliament only and only when MPs and MLAs of the government at the union parliament level, MPs, and at the state legislature level, MLAs, both of them should pass it at their respective levels. Then only the government will be able to convert a bill, draft bill, into an act. Then only the administration, the executive, the government, as we have written executive, will be able to implement the provisions of the act, be it DPDP Act, Digital Data Protection Act, Digital Privacy Data Protection Act, be it Waqf Amendment Bill, be it Enemy Property Act, anything that is going on in the news these days. Got it? If a bill is not passed, it will not become an act. Our constitution makers, why did they choose parliamentary form of government? Let me show you an image, then you will understand very, very clearly. See this. Donald Trump, if he does not sign a bill, if he sends a legislative proposal to the Senate and Senate disapproves it, the US administration does not get the authority to implement that proposal. Why? Because the US Parliament, I'm using the word parliament just to make you understand. Okay, US Congress has not approved of it. So there occurs a deadlock between the executive and the legislature. That means the bill that is not passed, the legislative proposal signed by the president, if not approved by the Senate, will not be able to see the light of the day. It will be infructuous. It will be rendered an exercise in vain, fruitless exercise, right? So that is why there occur frequent deadlocks between the US administration, as they call it, the office of the president, White House. Whatever activities they do, the secretaries advise to the president. He listens to their advice and he takes his own decision. After he has taken his decision, he sends the proposal to the Senate. If Senate disapproves it, then the bill will not become an act. Recently, he said that birthright citizenship will not be allowed in America. Okay, though the judiciary has roadblocked it, but if the same bill goes to the Senate, Senate will take a call. Okay, so we are not going into the detail of the US system, but understand that is why US, since it is a mature democracy, people are also acquainted with the various provisions of how the system works, and it is a system which is hundreds of years old. They are a mature democracy, mature polity. But our democracy, our Indian polity was very young, still young, 75 odd years. That is why we cannot afford to have these type of deadlocks between the legislative wing and the executive wing, between the legislature and the executive. That is why we wanted a system where the legislature, where the government of the day, the prime minister owes his allegiance, owes his continuity in the office to the parliament of the day, to the number 273. Okay, because we are a diverse country, we chose a system where the president is just a nominal head. President is not directly elected by people. He may not be able to represent the diversity of India, just one person. But we have chosen the prime ministerial system, prime ministerial form of government, because all the MPs elected from various parts of the country, diverse parts of the country, are contributing towards one person becoming the prime minister. Two reasons I've given you. Why did we choose the parliamentary form of government? Because we cannot afford the deadlocks. We want the parliament and the executive, the legislature and the executive, to function in tandem, to function in agreement with each other, provided the government of the day is having sufficient popular base, having sufficient legitimacy among the public. How can we say that it has legitimacy? It is reflected in the number of MPs of the ruling political party who have been able to win. If Congress comes up with a positive agenda which strikes a knot among the public, which strikes a rapport among the public, then Congress MPs will be able to win. If Prime Minister Modi is able to strike that knot among the public, among the Indian population, then MPs, members of parliament of his political party, BJP, will be able to win. So it is about the representatives, how it is about the leader, it is about the MPs. How well are they able to articulate the vision of the public, the demands of the public into their charter of their political party, election manifesto of their political party. So democracy prevails. Got it? You should be having this understanding at the back of your mind while reading the options before you set out to actually bubble the circle in the UPSC preliminary final exam, guys. That requires a practice. That is why in between these PPT slides, I have incorporated certain PYQs. Now, on your request, we have more of the flow charts and diagrams here than the text, but text has to be there for you to revise from, for you to make cursory notes out of. Okay. Now, you see here there is an impermeable, without any dashes, impermeable line, judiciary, sacrosanct China wall kind of a relationship. Legislature should not be having anything to do with judiciary. Executive should also not be having anything to do with judiciary. There cannot be any cooperation between it. Yes, though Article 124 in the appointment of each other, in the appointment of the CJI, etc., or judges, the president has to veto it. But that is for doctrine of checks and balances. That is the simple reason that judiciary cannot be unto itself. Judiciary cannot be left unto itself. Judges should at least be appointed by the legislature. Their service conditions should be decided by the Judges Inquiry Act, etc. These things can be enacted by the legislature of the day, but that does not mean that legislature can extract undue favors. Judges Inquiry Act, etc., executive, the Ministry of Law and Justice gets the name of the judge recommended by the collegium. Administrative side I'm talking about, okay, recommends the name of the judge as recommended by the collegium to the prime minister, who finally takes it to the president. Executive head, nominal head of the government is the president. Okay, so this is a kind of formal relationship, but we do not have the kind of organic relationship as it exists between the legislature and the executive. Imagine, Prime Minister is the head of the cabinet, and the same Prime Minister is the leader of the house, or is the leader of the majority party in the parliament. That kind of a relationship does not exist between either judiciary and legislature and judiciary and executive. Got it? That is why strict separation of powers is there, strict separation of powers, but on the administrative side, the powers are checked by one organ, and one organ of the polity keeps a check on the other organ. Three organs of the state, they are keeping a check on each other. If anything wrong happens in the parliament, you can go to judiciary. If anything wrong is done by the judge, you can go to parliament for the impeachment of the judge. Judges are appointed by the executive on the basis of the bills or laws, Judges Inquiry Act, Judges Appointment, etc., on the basis of the bills or norms carved out by the parliament. This is a formal relationship, not organic relationship as it exists between the legislature and executive. Got it? Explanation in this topic is more important. Now, before we jump on to other things, let us have a look at the questions with regard to the topic that we've just seen. Okay, so this is there. Now, previous year question, there is a parliamentary form of government in India because the Lok Sabha is elected directly by the people. Parliament can amend the constitution. Rajya Sabha cannot be dissolved. D. Council of Ministers is responsible to the Lok Sabha. There is a parliamentary system because Lok Sabha is elected directly by the people. No. Council of Ministers is responsible to the Lok Sabha. Government, members of the government, that is Council of Ministers, is responsible to the government, guys. Got it? So this is there. In the context of India, which of the following principles are implied institutionally in the parliament government? Implied. Implied means not explicitly mentioned but inherently there. No need to say them. Members of the cabinet are members of parliament. Implied. Ministers hold the office till they enjoy the confidence in the parliament. Article 74. Implied. Cabinet is headed by the head of the state. Cabinet is headed by the head of the state. Something seems to be fishy here. Okay, so you answer this question. I've in a way given you the answer, right? So please answer in the comment section. Let us take it as question number 2. I would be looking forward to the answers from you guys. I know many of you have got the answer on the basis of the discussion we've had, but still I leave it to you. Okay, so which of the following are matters on which a constitutional amendment is possible? Okay, this is something from the types of majority. I will be taking polity sessions whenever the time comes in the online batch or in the offline batch, wherever. Okay, so then we will see to it. Now, proportional representation is not necessary in a country wherein there are no reserved constituencies. a two-party system has developed. The first past the post system prevails. There is a fusion of the presidential and parliamentary form of government. Proportional representation is not necessary in a country. So you see, we say that the questions are tough in this era. See, this is a 1997 question, and according to me, on a scale of 1 to 10, okay, this is a question which is somewhere around 6, I would say. Okay. On the level of difficulty, this is a question of 6 on the basis of your understanding that is needed. During that time when the internet used to be very slow, we would only see a timer waiting, right? So that time, this type of a question being asked when there were no books like M. Lakshmikant. So just pay attention to the PYQs is all I want to say. Get hold of some new Vishal's PYQ booklet which covers the questions from 1980, 1979 onwards, 1981 onwards, if you are able to grab it. 100 odd rupees it will be for. Prelims PYQs are a jewel to get hold of. Okay. Now, coming back to the topic. Okay, what is the meaning of we were here, right? Parliamentary. A parliamentary system of government means that the executive branch is responsible to the parliament for its policies and acts. Whereas in the US, the presidential system, the president never goes to the Senate or Congress. A complete separation. Administration, executive is different from the parliament. Though he is held accountable, but he is not required to formally attend these meetings or be answerable to the parliament, the Senate, the Congress in the US. Got it? Now, that is why parliamentary system is called responsible government. Another name is responsible government. Why responsible? Because it is responsible to the parliament. Because it is responsible to the people through the parliament. MPs will question the government, the ministers of the government. Okay, ministers are answerable. If any member of the parliament asks any question from the minister, be it of opposition MP, okay, minister have to answer those questions in the form of starred question, unstarred question, etc. 0 hour accountability mechanisms are there, accountability of the government to the parliament, right? Now, a presidential system is a system of government where the executive branch is led by the president, who serves as both the head of the state and head of the government. In such a system, this branch exists separately from the legislature, to which it is not responsible for its acts and policies. Okay, this branch, executive branch, exists separately from the legislature. For example, Donald Trump, as you see, out of the blue, he wakes up and says things that even the Congress or the US Senate are caught unawares. US houses of legislature, they are caught unawares. He wakes up one fine day like a madman. You know, people are talking about madman theory around Donald Trump. That his madman character has some aura of, let's say, shock to the world. He might do anything. Tomorrow morning, he would say he's attacking Iran. So, similarly, the Republicans and Democrats, his own party members in Republican political party of US, they are also caught unawares. But in India, PM Modi also had these type of tendencies in the first tenure from 2014 to 19 and 19 to 24 also. But now that he is in coalition era, okay, he is becoming more consultative in his approach. He has to consult the opposition, the alliance partners like Nitish Kumar on especially the matters that affect the state of Bihar, right? So this is the kind of responsibility that we get in the parliamentary form of government, my dear students. Am I clear? Now, in the US, the president is not responsible for its acts. Sometimes Donald Trump says that he is going to acquire Panama Canal. Sometimes he says that he is going to abolish birthright citizenship or gun laws. keeps on talking about matters that are internal as well as external. More about external matters though, right? Parliamentary form of government, also known as cabinet form of government. So you should know this name for your preliminary class, also known as cabinet form of government or responsible government. Or Westminster. It is hidden under the image of the former president. Westminster model of government. Why Westminster? We borrowed this system from Britain because Britishers were ruling us. Right, we borrowed this system, and the place where the British Parliament is located, the name of that area is Westminster. Like in our system, the President's house is located on Raisina Hill, so we call it as news comes from the Raisina Hill. This is how the news, sometimes the news clippings they read in the newspaper. This is how the news clipping starts in the newspaper. So Westminster is the name of the place, and the system that was prevailing over there was parliamentary system. Hence, colloquially, we sometimes call it as Westminster system also. In this system, parliamentary system, president happens to be the nominal head and prime minister is the real head. Why president is the nominal head? Rajendra Prasad, when he became the Dr. Rajendra Prasad, when he became the first president of India, he was quite assertive. He said to Mr. Nehru, the first prime minister of India, once that I am the president, so my rule will prevail. If I take a call to not to sign the bill, my word would be, my shot would be final. Okay. So Nehru had to teach him certain lessons through the conventions of the British Parliament by filing a case in the court, going to court, something of that sort happened, and finally the matter settled that in the parliamentary form of government, president is just a nominal head. He has to act according to the aid and advice of Council of Ministers. Article 74, my dear friends. Aid and advice of the Council of Ministers is binding on the President of India. Not the aid and advice of Prime Minister alone, but aid and advice of Council of Ministers. If tomorrow some Indira Gandhi goes to the President and says that I want to invoke emergency, I order you or I recommend you, I advise you to invoke the provision of emergency, no single person, no matter howsoever he or she, howsoever high he or she might be placed, it has to be combined advice. Only then the president is supposed to act. Okay, these details will follow in the coming lectures also. Now, why did we choose this system? Because being a very diverse country affected by separatist movements, affected going through a rough phase, and having seen the wrath of British rule, having studied the other constitutions where presidents have turned out to be dictators, we did not want to give the helm of the rung of the horses of the Indian state in the hands of just one person or lady. This time, Miss Murmu, right? We don't want to leave the reins in hands of one person. That is why we have the command in the hands of Prime Minister, whose survival in the office depends upon the support of other 273 MPs. If he goes haywire, if the Prime Minister goes adrift, if he starts acting in a whimsical manner, 10 out of 273, 15 out of 273 MPs might withdraw their support and he would be on his toes. Right? Now, features of the parliamentary government, principles of collective responsibility, Article 75. So, in 1975, Article 75 was pushed to the corner. This principle of collective responsibility was thrown into the trash. That means all the members, all the ministers are collectively responsible to the parliament. Collective responsibility. They swim together, they sink together. They are like on a Titanic. If the Titanic is saved, all the ministers in the government will be safe if the government is safe. What happened in 1975? Indira Gandhi, solo mode, went to the president in the dead of the night and invoked president's rule. So she violated the principle of collective responsibility. Okay. What is the other connotation of principle of collective responsibility for prelims? What is the other side of the coin? The other side of the coin is if ministers are in disagreement with the decision taken by the Council of Ministers or Cabinet. Okay. Why do we call it as Cabinet? See, this is Council of Ministers, a body of around 50 plus ministers. Okay, then this is the inner coterie, that is Cabinet, 10 to 12 ministers, senior ministers of the government, including the Prime Minister. They take the decision, and Council of Ministers have to just say yes, sir, just conform to the decisions taken by the Cabinet. Why? Because Council is too large a body. They have to either echo the voice, or if they dissent, that dissent should not come in the public once the decision is taken. If they are not in agreement with the decision taken by the Cabinet or the Council of Ministers, either they should resign or they should say yes. Otherwise, they should discontinue from the government. They should resign from the government by tendering their resignation to the Prime Minister via Prime Minister to the President. Minister resigns to the President ultimately, and his resignation is forwarded through the Prime Minister of India. Got it? Majority party rule, 273 out of 545. This is what I have already explained to you. Real and nominal executive. Article 74, President has to act upon the aid and advise. De jure head means prima facie the President is the head, de facto the real head. De facto is the real head, is by the virtue of the fact it is the Prime Minister who happens to be the head of the government. Political homogeneity, that means there is homogeneity of the color of the policies in the parliament and the government. Heterogeneity is not there. In America, it has so happened that the Senate, the House of the people in the US, I'm just loosely using these terms, don't go strictly, okay? House of people doesn't mean Senate or Congress, just to help you get an idea of it, okay? Sometimes in the Senate, the party in majority is Democrats, whereas the president is of Republicans. There are two parties, Republicans and Democrats. So party whose president gets elected may be different from the party who is having majority in the Senate or Congress. Got it? So when this happens, there occurs a deadlock. The bills, the orders passed by the president may not be approved by the Senate. But in India, that problem of heterogeneity is overcome with the help of the parliamentary form. Why? Because whatever be the color of the, whatever be the ideology of the prime minister, it will reflect in the ideology of the majority members of the House of People, at least, Lok Sabha, if not Rajya Sabha. Because the composition of Rajya Sabha changes gradually. Rajya Sabha's members retire gradually. One third of the members retire every 2 years. So the composition of the Rajya Sabha may not change as drastically in one shot as the composition of Lok Sabha may change. 5 years hence, it was Congress. 5 years 5 years hence, it might be Congress. But if we look back 10 years, it was BJP, right? So, dual membership. Ministers are members of both. If this question comes in the parliamentary form of government, dual membership is allowed. Yes, ministers who are MPs who are the members of the parliament can also be the members of the government by holding a ministry. So, dual membership is permissible in the parliamentary form of government. Importance of lower house. Lower house, that is Lok Sabha, is more important. Why? Because it is directly elected by the people, and therefore the test of survival of the government is taken in the Lok Sabha only. Okay. Executive's prerogative to get the lower house dissolved. Executive, if the Prime Minister goes to the President of India and says that I want to dissolve this house, I want to face the election again, then President will have to abide by the Prime Minister, abide by what the Prime Minister says. Why? Why? Because Prime Minister commands the majority. Or if we reverse the statement, President is supposed to dissolve the Lok Sabha and ask the election commission to hold the fresh elections only and only when president has no doubt that the prime minister is in command of the majority of the members of the house. Prime minister has the support of majority members. A weak prime minister who does not have the support of 273 MPs, his advice to dissolve the Lok Sabha can be ignored by the president. A president will apply his own test of judgment. President will apply his own mind. He might seek consultation. He might go by the newspaper reports that Nitish Kumar or any other leader, coalition partner has withdrawn the support from the Prime Minister. That is why he does not want anybody else to be the Prime Minister, and he is therefore giving the wrong advice to the President that let Lok Sabha be dissolved. Okay, so President has to act independently during that scenarios. That is the advantage. That was the reason that we had a nominal head, so that whenever there is a vacuum in the power, whenever some ulterior or wrong advice is given, he can apply his own judgment test to the situation. Okay. Advantages of the parliamentary government: responsible government. It is accountable to the legislature. CAG report, UPSC report, okay, independent regulatory bodies, their reports, etc., they are debated in the parliament. It is this thing that keeps the government in the power on its toes. Ministers have to answer. They have to clarify why a rail accident happened, why there is water scarcity in Jhansi region, how come a thing was allowed to happen, right? So this is there. Parliamentary committees are another important tool of accountability. Then question hour, cooperation between legislature and executive. No deadlocks. There are no deadlocks between legislature and executive. There have been, however, instances in the history of India where there have been deadlocks. When there was a weak government, especially after 1990, especially in the 1990s, Indra Kumar Gujral, Chandrasekhar, Narasimha Rao, right? But the deadlocks haven't been too prolonged. Okay, this was one decade, 1990s to 1999, when there was this kind of a scenario that weak governments, hung parliaments were there. Then also, we were able to bring about the historic reforms in the form of LPG reforms. Liberalization, privatization, and globalization reforms were brought about by a minority government only. Got it? So the good sense, as was expected by the Constituent Assembly members, has prevailed upon both the organs, legislature and executive. Okay? Prevents the tendencies of despotism. No leader, neither president nor prime minister, is so powerful in this system that he turns out to be dictatorial, turns out to be a dictator, despot. Despot is somebody who exercises powers in a whimsical manner to the detriment of the public. Okay, this system, parliamentary system, does not give so much of authority to one single individual. Okay, whatever such tendencies were there during Indira government, those tendencies have also been brought under check wide 44th Constitutional Amendment Act 1978. Am I clear? So these things are there. Now, parliamentary democracy with a written constitution gives clarity. Okay, works on the basis of assumption that judiciary, executive, and legislature would gel off well together. This JEL will work in a well-oiled manner. In the way in which a well-oiled machinery, well-greased machinery, well-lubricated machinery works. Harmonious way of working. Okay. Now, but that does not mean that judiciary should bow before the popularly elected leader. No, judiciary has to go as per the written constitution, rule of law. It has to uphold the rule of law. What are the disadvantages? Instability of the government in the era of competitive politics? Yes, as I said, from 1990s onwards, till 1998 at least, we've seen government for 14 days, right? Indra Kumar Gujral, he was sleeping in a, at that time there were no five-star hotels in India. I mean, in the strict sense of the term, he was sleeping in a four-star hotel, and just to get a consensus leader to be the prime minister, he gets a phone call in the dead of the night. He was sleeping in his kurta pajama and he was told that, come on, hold this way, hold the rungs of the government, you are going to be the prime minister. Why? Because there was no consensus among the political parties as to who should become the prime minister. IK Gujral, because of his rapport across the political party leaders, was chosen to be the prime minister. Governments have been changing like we change clothes during that era, if I can use that term, changing clothes. Okay, governments have been changing like seasons, spring, winter, etc., like that. Okay, proper term will be, we have seen hamstrung governance. Hamstrung governance means government will be hanging in a physical balance depending upon the whims of a political party leader, political party supremo, who's giving the support of just 20 MPs towards the achievement of 273 total number. Okay, so policy paralysis, no decisions will be taken, no reformative big decisions will be taken during those years, right? Nonetheless, as I told you, major reforms, our polity has behaved very maturely when, as per the demands of the time, even the greatest of the economic reforms so far in the history of India were brought during the time of a minority government. Not to forget this fact. Okay, against the spirit of doctrine of separation of powers. Since parliament is government, government is parliament, there occur frauds. Parliament is glossing over the mistakes of the government, because in parliament majority is of the ruling political party which is in government, ruling party is in government, ruling party is in parliament. So lack of accountability because of strict, not so strict separation of powers. Okay, dictatorship by cabinet, can we say that? Yes. Entire council of ministers never meets. As I drew the pie diagram earlier, council of ministers 54, even those 54 members, their support or consensus is not required. 12 is enough. Even 12 are not required to agree. If the prime minister takes the decision, because he is the prime minister and in fact a charismatic one, so they all would agree to his diktats most of the times. Okay, so entire council of ministers never meets. It is the cabinet which takes the call on the important matters of policy, and principle of collective responsibility therefore is a myth. Ultimately it is one person who is calling the shots, unless of course he is not Manmohan Singh, a weak prime minister, right? Now, lack of continuity in the government programs. Government changes, programs change. Manrega is the only scheme that is continuing. BJP even wanted to abolish it. Amrut Mission, earlier its name was Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission. Names are changed for the sake of political benefits, right? Gandhi's names are surrounded by, or names are so designed that they owe their allegiance. The schemes are as if they are being funded by one particular family in India, okay, or one particular leader. If it is BJP, BJP will propagate the names of its own leaders. If it is Congress, their own leaders. Okay, so schemes and policies are changed and new brought about according to the political dispensation, political party in power. That is what injects an element of uncertainty and a drain on the wealth of nation, because the government programs once launched, they involve a huge expenditure. That expenditure goes down the drain. Now presidential system features only one head. The president is the head of the state and also the head of the government. Okay, so he is the one. So if the question comes, the president is the head of the state and prime minister is the head of the government, wrong. Prime minister is the real head, right? Prime minister is the head of the government, wrong, because it means nominal or real, there is ambiguity. So you should not go by the statement. If the statement says president is the head of the state as well as the head of the government, yes. Prima facie head means nominal, Okay, so just be careful about these things in the prelims. It is the he is the real executive. All the government work is carried out as per Prime Minister's orders. I mean, we are talking about the president, so presidential system. So if it is about the presidential system, president is the head of the state, real head of the state, and real head of the government. In presidential system, yes. If the same statement is being asked for prime ministerial form of government, then this statement will be wrong. Got it? Now, all the executive powers are vested in the president. Cabinet appointed by the president is merely to advise him. Now, look at these secretaries. They are standing as if they are his peons, with due respect, as if they are at his beck and call. He presses the bell button and they come and he sends them off. Right? So, he is the only one who is sitting. They are all at his mercy. He can wish away the secretaries to the US administration, US president. They are just his secretaries. They are not even given the nomenclature of ministers, the tag of ministers. Got it? So this is how. Secretaries are experts in their respective field. Defense secretary would be having a background in defense. Okay, so he is the supreme. In the presidential system, president is not one among equals. He is the supreme above subordinates. In the prime ministerial system, prime minister is one among equals. He is sometimes in prelims the term that appears is primus inter pares. Note down this term if you do not know this already. Okay. Now, direct election, the president is elected directly by the people who constitute the electorate. The term of the office of the president is not dependent upon the will of the legislature. In prime ministerial system, the continuity in the office, the continuity of the prime minister in the office is contingent upon the majority of the legislature's support. If he is having the support of Lok Sabha, only till then he will continue. Else he will have to step down. He will have to resign. Right? And since it is the collective responsibility in the prime ministerial government, if the prime minister dies, God forbid, or if he resigns, God willing, no, I do not mean that, right? So if he resigns, then it is assumed that entire council of ministers has resigned, right? The legislature does not elect the president and the legislature cannot seek to oust him from the office. Okay. So for complete term of 5 years, no one can remove Donald Trump unless and until he has done something grossly wrong, which he might do, considering the behavior and personality he is, right? So this is there. Advantages of presidential system, stability of the government is there. Then lesser political interference in administrative functioning. In India, because of reservation or vote bank politics, sometimes the greatest of the prime ministers, the rigidest, the rigid of the rigid prime ministers have also succumbed to the political pressure just before elections. I'll give you a few examples. 2019 elections were there. You will see EWS reservation being introduced just 1 year before elections, right? 2014 elections were there. National Food Security Act was rolled out by Congress. 2009 elections were there. Manrega was brought about in 2008 just to appease the voters. We will give you cash for employment. In lieu of your remuneration, you will give us vote. So this kind of a situation is there. But here the political interference is lesser. One chief minister of one state can roadblock a reform. Example, Waqf Bill Amendment Bill. I am not going into the merits of the bill. Example is Waqf Bill did not pass the Lok Sabha. Why? Because one leader who was supporting NDA did not support it. Okay, did not support BJP's legislative agenda insofar as Waqf Amendment Bill was concerned. Not much interference of the political party. In India, political party, be it Congress or BJP, sees interference. In India, the government, be it of BJP or Congress, sees the interference from their political party or their wing. RSS, BJP, interference. Congress. Manmohan Singh, Sonia Gandhi, interference. Right? This kind of an interference is lesser when seen in the US in the presidential system, because president gets the authority directly from public. He's got the vote from the public. Vote for his legislative agenda, for his plan to run the country for next 4 in the US case, or 5 years in other cases. Right? Now, effective checks and balances more suitable for multi-party democracies which are mature democracies. Okay, so presidential system is more suitable for these type of systems. Okay, now disadvantages: frequent deadlocks are there. As I told you, the Republicans in the US may not agree with the president, or the Democrats now in the US Senate may not agree with the legislative agenda or with the policies of Donald Trump, who happens to be the Republican candidate. Okay, so it could lead to stalemate in the governance, because both the president and the legislature carry democratic legitimacy. Senate member says that we are elected by the people. President says I am also elected by the people. So dual authority, leading to confusion. Dangers of dictatorship, as we have seen in Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He's changed the name of the country. He's extended the tenure of the president to such an extent that he'll continue in office till 2029. He's changed the nature of the constitution in such a manner that no one can uproot him till 2029. Russia, right? Presidential system. Putin. It's as if you guys are growing up ever since the your age, when somebody of your age would be saying papa papa. He's grown up listening Putin Putin, and he's become an elderly young lad applying for UPSC. He still knows papa and Putin, they both remain the same figures, one in family and one in Russia. On a lighter note, right? So only periodic assessment. In the presidential system, the assessment of responsibility is periodic. So what I mean to say is, presidential candidates, the presidents have so manipulated the system that they are able to continue for such a long haul. Despite the world has changed, we've grown up, but these leaders are very much intact there. Right? Now, parliament question: why did India choose to parliamentary system in the first place? Familiarity. These are the statements. Government of India Act 1935, influence of British system on the framers of the constitution, diversity of Indian society. The Constituent Assembly rejected the presidential system as in the US on the grounds that under such a system, the executive and legislature are separate from and independent of each other, which is likely to cause conflicts between them, which our infant nascent democracy was not at all ready to face or bear, tolerate, or afford. Right? We need rapid development, for which cordial relationship between legislature and executive is a must. Done, guys? So these are the previous year questions. Please go through them. I have incorporated the questions all at one place for your convenience. It would be get better if you type the name of the number of the question and post their answers. I will come up in the next lecture on the under the Udaan series. Next lecture will happen 6 p.m. tomorrow. We are trying to bring it to a set time, 6 p.m. every day. Between 6 to 6:15 you can expect every day lecture will be uploaded. Okay, so this is there. Now, proportional representation is not necessary in a country, not necessary in a country wherein this question is there. Then Indian parliamentary system is different from British parliamentary system in that India has both a real and nominal executive, a system of collective responsibility, bicameral legislature, or D, the system of judicial review. This is the answer to it. I'm just telling you. Then there is a parliamentary system of government in India because these reasons are there. Okay, then the main advantage of the parliamentary form of government of India is that executive and, okay, you can attempt this. I'm not going to read it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can take a screenshot quickly. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm sure you would have taken the screenshot by now. Proceeding further. Okay, this was all in our lecture. Now, this question also does discuss the parliamentary control over the executive. 2003. Should India switch to the presidential system considering the frequent deadlocks in the Indian parliament? Considering the popularity of a great leader, when PM Modi was so popular, or he's still as popular, not as much, but yes, still a force to reckon with, a personality to reckon with, should we switch over? This is another way of asking the same question. Okay, question 1, question 2. This can be another variant of the same question translated or changed in nature, not translated, right? Now, in the next lectures, we are going to see these interesting things. What do we mean by constitutionalism? I leave you with the thought, what do we mean by constitutionalism? What do you decipher or interpret out of this? Not so beautiful a diagram, but yes, a flowchart or whatever. What do you infer from it? Constitution mirroring the practice of the democracy, mirroring the constitution. If it mirrors, it is in agreement. If it is not, there is gap between theory and practice. For more on this, stay tuned for the next lecture. I'll be coming up with this understanding based lecture also in the next few lectures. So for PDF, as I said, you can subscribe to the Telegram channel. Other updates also you can get over there. I am taking daily current affairs session right in the morning, just because you guys are able to stay abreast of what's happening in the polity, what's happening in economy, geography, and whole lot of current affairs. Plus, to keep myself updated as a teacher of especially subjects like polity, economy, and current affairs, the dynamic section of UPSC syllabus. Wish to see you again. If you liked the video, do post in the comments. We should be able to see your feedback. It keeps us alive, it keeps us on our toes if we are committing any mistake. Critical feedback would also be appreciated, I would say. Okay, so this was all. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a good time ahead. Keep revising, keep studying, and keep posting the answers to the questions, whatever have been asked in this lecture. Thank you. I hope this Udaan series is being helpful to you guys. Thank you.